the police department back in 2014, we don't even have them officers here anymore. So what are you protesting? These officers not even here no more.
Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about a story that really aggravates me because I put in a lot of work on my own on this channel, refuting, disputing, debunking, and destroying the myth that is Michael Brown, this so-called innocent angel that was killed by police after he put his hands up, that is completely and thoroughly debunked time and time again by multiple different investigations. I have cited the Department of Justice report on the Michael Brown incident, which was done by Obama's DOJ, done by Eric Holder, who, by the way, was looking for a reason to find Officer Wilson guilty in that scenario, but the forensic evidence proved beyond any shadow of a doubt that the shooting of Michael Brown was 100% justified. He assaulted Officer Darren Wilson, according to the witnesses and according to the forensics. The first gunshot that hit him in the hand actually had him being burned by the muzzle flash because he was reaching for the gun when he was shot. We have blood evidence that shows that Michael Brown ran away from the officer, then doubled back and was running towards him, charging him as he was shot by Officer Darren Wilson and killed. Now, despite the fact that this report came out in 2015, it is public for anyone to see. It is irrefutable that Michael Brown was in the wrong and his shooting was justified. Year after year, on the anniversary of his death, we see people posting, representatives, members of Congress, aspiring members of Congress, that this is the anniversary of Michael Brown's murder. Well, we just hit the 10-year anniversary of the 100% justified shooting of Michael Brown, the 100% earned consequences of Michael Brown, and this time, Black Lives Matter rioters decided that they were going to try to tear up Ferguson again, and now an officer, Officer Travis Brown, somebody who's actually innocent, is suffering from a traumatic brain injury due to an attack that was initiated upon him by these same rioters. Again, 10 years, and these people didn't bother to make it 8 pages in to the Department of Justice report that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that the Wilson shooting of Michael Brown was justified, and now somebody's fighting for his life over this nonsense. Now look, we're gonna get into this. We're gonna go into this particular story. We're gonna play some words from the police chief in Ferguson because I think they're powerful. But before we do, thank you to everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
We had protesters lined up across the street here at Andy Worm parking lot. For the majority of the night, they were all peaceful. In fact, they began blocking our streets out here on South Florissant Road. We allowed the protesters to block our streets out here. Not only did we allow the protesters to block our street, we even provided a car on the north end and on the north end and on the south end, so the protesters couldn't get hit by vehicles. Sometime throughout the night, the protesters were violently shaking our fence at this police station. Again, we did not even react. We stayed here, let them shake the fence.
So Ferguson Police Chief Troy Doyle in this particular press conference is describing the things that went down on the evening that was the anniversary of the Michael Brown justified killing, and he explains how he gave the protesters every chance that they could have possibly had, even to the point where they were violently shaking the fence of the police department without intervening. They let it go. They let them rage out in their infinite ignorance about the Michael Brown case. They let them do these particular crimes because they weren't trying to be seen as too heavy-handed in their police response. So they did nothing, which is not advisable, especially when, again, there is no justification for anyone out there in the country to be a supporter of Michael Brown. Not even his family can deny the overwhelming evidence that Michael Brown was the initiator of violence against Officer Darren Wilson and that the shooting was 100% justified.
That happened several times throughout the night, up until the point that they broke the bottom portions of our fence. They destroyed property on our police department's parking lot. It was at that time I sent out an arrest team to make an arrest for destruction of property.
Now, of course, the generosity and grace of the Ferguson police only extends so far. So as he said right there, they allowed them to shake the fence. They allowed them to block the streets. They allowed them to commit all manner of crimes up until the point where they started destroying stuff. And then he sent out a force in order to arrest just the people that were committing the destruction. And this ultimately ended up resulting in the injury of Officer Travis Brown. Now, there's actually CCTV footage of Officer Travis Brown being shoved to the ground, where he ultimately ended up hitting his head when they're trying to effectuate an arrest. There is a person charged in this particular instance. Now, due to the violent nature of this and the way that YouTube treats my channel, I'm not going to show this footage to you, but it will be linked for you to see it for yourself. And obviously, this is a completely unjustified outcome, especially, again, when you realize that these people are angry over a lie, an untruth, something that didn't happen. And the police chief should have went after them on those grounds, although I'm not going to criticize him too much because his next statements, I think, are absolute winners.
My team got out there and was assaulted by a number of the protesters that were out there on the scene. As a result, one of my police officers suffered a severe brain injury. He is at an area hospital right now, fighting for his life. And I'm going to break away a little bit from what I was planning to talk about. This police department, this Ferguson Police Department, since 2014, has been a punching bag for this community.
Now, you could just hear his voice breaking right there. It's absolutely devastating to him that one of his officers could be severely injured for the rest of his life, if not die in the hospital where he's currently fighting for his life over something so stupid. Because not only was the Ferguson Police Department 100% justified in the killing of Michael Brown, it was based on Michael Brown's choices and actions, and the lies about him about the Ferguson Police Department have been absolutely disgusting. But the Ferguson Police Department has also completely changed their operations. They've given in to a number of the Black Lives Matter rioter demands, and that didn't result in anything positive being earned by the police department, despite the fact that they decided to operate in good faith with actors that were clearly and obviously operating in bad faith.
The police department back in 2014, we don't even have them officers here anymore. So what are you protesting? These officers not even here no more.
So I love the fact that he goes off script here because you can feel the emotion in it. And he starts off by pointing out that they don't even have the same officers that they had back in 2014. They've completely churned over their staff. And by the way, I just want to point out for everybody out there in the audience that there was no reason to be protesting in the first place. The Ferguson police did nothing wrong. Officer Darren Wilson did nothing wrong. This is just more lies from Black Lives Matter. One of their original foundational cases is based on a lie, and we're still seeing the consequences of people shamelessly perpetuating those lies.
Everything that the activist community has advocated for, as far as body-worn cameras, implicit bias training, crisis intervention training, all this stuff, we have done all of this. What are we protesting? What is it? We even changed the uniforms at this police department because people said that the old uniforms trigger people. What are we doing?
This is something that I think is important for everybody out there in the audience to understand. You can never give in to these radicals. You can never give in to these thugs. You can never give in to people who are not wedded to the truth, who function based on lies, because any compromise that you make with them will earn you no respect and will just provide more inspiration for them to push harder, for them to riot more, for them to destroy more in order to gain more ground. And this guy lays it out. They did all the things. Body cams, which by the way, were actually a great intervention that inadvertently, because Black Lives Matter activists thought it would hurt the police officers, ended up helping officers adjudicate more and more fraudulent cases against them, more and more fraudulent claims of police brutality against them. They also did the implicit bias training, which is stupid and you shouldn't do it. It's totally pointless, but the activists wanted it, so they did it. And they did a bunch of other things, including changing the uniforms, as he said, because these idiots said that the Ferguson police uniform was too triggering for them. Absurd.
10 years later, I got an officer fighting for his life. It's enough, and I'm done with it. We're not doing it here in Ferguson. Our community is united behind us. Our community is fed up. We want to heal. Our community want to heal. We want people to peacefully protest, but we damn sure ain't going to allow you to destroy this city, and we ain't going to allow you to hurt none of these police officers. We are united here in this city. We're done with it. We're not doing it anymore.
I absolutely love this. There is always a level where you go too far, and the Black Lives Matter rioters in Ferguson have gone too far. And he says, we're done with this. You want to peacefully protest? We're going to allow that, but we're not catering to your demands. We, the police department, are uniting against the rioters, against the thugs, against the criminals, against the activists who, no matter what, constantly attack the police department, and I'm damn glad to hear it. You need to go after these people. You need to actually enforce the law against them, because the fact of the matter is, Darren Wilson did nothing wrong, and pretending that he did doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the police officers, it didn't help Travis Brown, and it's not going to help any of the citizens that are law-abiding in the city of Ferguson. It will help the criminals, obviously. You pulling back your law enforcement will definitely aid them, but the fact of the matter is, we already give too much ground to the criminal.
Tonight, St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell updates us on the Ferguson police officer who is fighting for his life tonight. He was critically injured during protest outside of the Ferguson Police Department this weekend.
So I'm deciding to cut to this local news segment because I find it to be incredibly interesting. First and foremost, notice the fact that it says Michael Brown forever on the ground. Again, I will repeat this in infinitum if I have to, that Michael Brown's shooting was 100% justified. It should be forever known that Michael Brown is responsible for his own actions, and Darren Wilson did nothing wrong. Zero things wrong, let me be clear about that. But they're going to do an interview with Wesley Bell, who is the district attorney for this area, who was actually specifically elected to reopen the Michael Brown case. He was an activist who ran on doing so. He said it was evil white racism when he was coming into office. However, when he re-examined all the evidence, he came to the conclusion that Officer Darren Wilson did nothing wrong. Now, of course, he had to say, well, we don't have any evidence to charge him with the crime, and this doesn't exonerate him, when in fact that is a lie. It does in fact exonerate him, and it seems like over time Wesley Bell has actually changed a little bit into a better person. I still wouldn't trust him at all because of how he was elected and because of how he conducted himself in that press conference that I'm describing, but I find this interview to be quite compelling and quite interesting, and for the first time, I'm actually a little bit hopeful in him replacing Cori Bush, because in my mind before, he was a guy who's just like Cori Bush. They just disagree with one another on Israel, and even though I think Cori Bush is absolutely awful, that one specific issue is not enough for me, or wasn't enough for me, to celebrate Wesley Bell's victory over her in the Democratic primary.
St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney Wesley Bell spoke with us after he visited with Officer Brown and his family. He says Brown has made some improvement.
We know that there's been some progress, and we obviously are happy about that, but we still know that there's a lot more to go.
Officer Brown, who joined the Ferguson Police Department this January, also served on the front line of protests in 2014 as a St. Louis County police officer.
Now, as you heard right here, Travis Brown was not a member of the Ferguson Police back in 2014. In fact, he joined in January of this year. He was a St. Louis County police officer who was called along with other departments to deal with the rioting back then, but he had no connection to the department and in no way, shape, or form should be held guilty by association, first and foremost because Officer Darren Wilson did nothing wrong, but secondly because he wasn't even there at the department even if Wilson did do something wrong, which he 100% didn't, as proven out by multiple investigations.
I think that what happened in Ferguson 10 years ago has been the impetus for change, positive change. But if we're still hanging on to things that can't happen, when we all know that it can't happen, and let's be clear, there is no question right now on whether charges could be filed in that case. They can. The Department of Justice report is public to everyone. You can look at it.
Now, isn't that amazing? Wesley Bell, who was elected for the sole purpose of charging Officer Darren Wilson way back when, who said even as he realized he couldn't charge him, by the way, the Department of Justice report was public before he was sworn into office, that there was no evidence to do so, but it doesn't exonerate him, is now singing a completely different tune. He is telling people the DOJ report is public, like I do time and time again, and the evidence that Michael Brown was in the wrong is overwhelming. what an amazing turn. What an amazing 180. This guy started off as Cori Bush, repeating all of her stupid talking points, but now, having been in the position for years, he's starting to tell people what I tell them on this channel, which I find to be absolutely amazing.
One witness would like Ferguson police to release the body camera footage of that night.
If the chief says we're different now, show your difference, show the body cam footage. If what you say is true, it will support you, and we got nothing to worry about in the stories. Is very different.
First of all, I just want to say for everybody out there in the audience, I am going to speak for you when I label Chuck Modiano an absolute idiot and buffoon. He wants the footage to be released from the body cam to show us whether or not the traumatic brain injury suffered by Travis Brown is actually justified in some way, shape, or form. Now, like I said, we have CCTV footage of it. He was attacked while effectuating a legitimate arrest. But this guy, racked with white guilt, being an absolute coward in every possible way, being one of the weakest people that I've seen on the local news in a long time, is defending the rioters, defending the Black Lives Matter rioters, because he's like, oh gosh, I can't ever hold them to account for their actions. Again, read the Department of Justice report, Chuck, you absolute moron, you person that was out there supporting this protest that's based on a lie for 10 years. If you want them to release the evidence, maybe you should actually pay attention to when evidence is released in the root case that is causing them to be out there in the first place. It's been 10 years of this nonsense, 10 years of these lies, and still rioters are showing up, destroying stuff. White guilted cowards are going on TV, blaming the cop that has a traumatic brain injury, trying to pretend like this was an ambiguous situation at any point in time. Again, CCTV footage available for anybody to see. Rioters are not justified in destroying property, not at all, not ever, and the Michael Brown case is not a case of an innocent angel black person being maliciously killed by the police. It's the case of a criminal attacking a police officer and getting the obvious results one would expect from attacking a police officer, as per all the forensic evidence and the overwhelming majority of witnesses, the ones with credibility, not Michael Brown's buddies that changed their story a bunch of different times and were proven to be liars. Hey guys, editing Sean here, and guess what? The Ferguson police did release the body cam footage at the time that I'm editing this video, and spoiler alert, it does not justify inflicting a traumatic brain injury on Travis Brown. It will also be linked in full in the description for you to check it out for yourself, and I just want to emphasize why I'm so angry given this little bit of extra time that I have with you. Travis Brown right now is suffering a traumatic brain injury. He is a father of 2. His children could never see him again if he dies, or he could be a completely different person if he never recovers from that injury. And for what? For what reason? Because left-wing progressives lied to you about the Michael Brown case. Because these activists who 10 years later say that they care so much about Michael Brown are too lazy to get to page 8 of the Department of Justice report. When you get to that point in the report, it is irrefutable that Michael Brown attacked Officer Darren Wilson. It is irrefutable that Brown was charging at Officer Darren Wilson when he was ultimately killed in the second encounter. And it's also irrefutable and indisputable that Michael Brown did not put his hands up. Hands up, don't shoot is an absolute lie. But all of the people that were willing to kill this police officer, willing to riot 10 years later, willing to destroy their own community, couldn't get to page 8 of that report. That's why this man is in the hospital, and it's disgusting. Now, Officer Travis Brown does have a GoFundMe to help him and his family through these troubling times. It is currently, at the time of me recording this video, at $62,000 of a $100,000 goal. I understand that money is tight for people out there in the audience, but I leave the option open for you guys to contribute because I know a bunch of my supporters definitely would want to do so if they're capable. So again, linked in the description. Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. What do you think about the Michael Brown case lie living on for 10 years? What do you think about Travis Brown's traumatic brain injury? What do you think about the police chief saying we're done with this nonsense? It's over. And what do you think about Wesley Bell, of all people, coming out strong and saying Michael Brown's case is not a real case, so cut it out? All your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute insanity in the Michael Brown riots, the 2024 Michael Brown riots. Till next time.